Prime Minister, it's an honor to have you here before our cabinet, which I hope in years to come will be thought of one of the great cabinets in the history of the United States. We just spent a few minutes speaking in the Oval Office and learning and giving each other ideas. One of the things I did ask is, why did President Obama sign that agreement with Iran? Because nobody's been able to figure that one out. But maybe someday we'll be able to figure it out. I want to thank you very much for being here. Great respect for you. I know you're working very hard, and General Mattis and General McMaster and Rex Tillerson have all been telling me that you're doing a job. It's not an easy job. It's a very tough job. Your soldiers are fighting hard. I know Mosul is moving along, but Mosul was ours until we left. So perhaps we shouldn't have gone in, and certainly we shouldn't have left. We should never, ever have left. And the vacuum was created, and we discussed what happened. But we'll spend a lot of time with you, with your group, and thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate it. And we will figure something out. Our main thrust is we have to get rid of ISIS. We're going to get rid of ISIS. It will happen. It's happening right now. General Mattis and his team have done an incredible job. A lot of things are different than they were even 5 or 6 weeks ago. We've been here a short while, and people have said they've never seen such a difference. So we are with you, and again, thank you very much for being with us.
Excuse me, speaking.
Yes, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا أشكر الرئيس ترامب على دعوته لنا للحضور للقائه هنا في واشنطن. العلاقات العراقية الأمريكية أساسية لنا. نحن اشتركنا معا في محاربة داعش وفي مقارعة داعش. قواتنا العراقية تقود القتال على الأرض ضد داعش للقضاء عليها، والآن هي في مدينة الموصل في الجانب الأيمن، ولم يبقى إلا قليل لتحرير الموصل وتحرير كل الأراضي العراقية من داعش. السيد الرئيس، نحن الآن أمام مفترق تاريخي للقضاء على هذه المنظمة الإرهابية، ونستطيع بتعاوننا معا أن نقضي على هذه المنظمة الإرهابية في داخل العراق بل في المنطقة والعالم. هذه المنظمة منظمة بشعة تسببت الكثير من المآسي في المنطقة وفي العالم أيضا، ويتهدد الأمن والسلام في جميع العالم. وشاهدتم التفجيرات الإرهابية التي قامت بها سواء في بغداد أو في باكستان أو في عواصم أوروبية وعواصم أخرى وحتى هنا في الولايات المتحدة. بالإضافة إلى ذلك علينا أن نهتم في السلام. نحن الحرب طريقة لفرض السلام في المنطقة وفرض السلام في العراق، وحتى يكون هناك سلام علينا أن نقوم باستقرار. في الوقت الحاضر تم إعادة بحدود 1.6 مليون من النازحين إلى بيوتهم في العراق، وهذا نجاح للقوات العراقية ونجاح للجهد الإنساني العراقي. والآن في نفس الوقت اللي قواتنا تحارب في الموصل توفر الإسناد الإنساني لهم، وأيضا المواطنون موجودون في داخل المدينة مع أن قواتنا تحررهم. هناك تفاعل كبير بين المواطنين في الموصل وداخل المناطق مع قواتنا الأمنية، وأستطيع أن أدعي أن قواتنا الأمنية الآن أصبحت من القوات القوية وقوات مكافحة الإرهاب العراقية من أقوى القوات الآن في المنطقة، ونحن نفتخر بذلك ونفتخر بالوطنية العراقية. العراقيون يعتزون بوطنهم وضحوا الكثير من أجل الدفاع عن وطنهم ومن أجل تحرير الأراضي، ونحن نطمح إلى مزيد من التعاون بين العراق والولايات المتحدة. سيد الرئيس، العلاقات مع الولايات المتحدة كانت بخيار عراقي واختيار عراقي لتطوير هذه العلاقة، ليس في مجال العسكري والمجال الأمني، بل أيضا في المجال الاقتصادي، مجال الطاقة، مجال التجارة، مجال التعاون الثقافي والتعاون في كل المجالات. وآمل أن نعزز علاقتنا على ضوء اتفاقية الإطار الاستراتيجي التي وقعت بين العراق وبين الولايات المتحدة من أجل تطوير هذه العلاقات. هناك هم مشترك بيننا. جنودكم الآن هي مع جنودنا في العراق، ضباطكم يقومون بتدريب القوات العراقية، تقدم الإسناد الكامل من الجو لقواتنا المقاتلة على الأرض، وأتصور يجب أن نبني علاقة أمتن ونستمر بهذه العلاقة. وأنا أشكرك على رفع اسم العراق من الأمر الرئاسي الذي تم إخراجه سابقا، وهذه تعني استجابة إلى الطلب العراقي، وأيضا تعزيز العلاقة مع العراق وقيمة العراق بالنسبة للعلاقات العراقية الأمريكية. شكرا جزيلا سيد الرئيس، وشكرا أيضا لوفد الوزارة.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. We very much appreciate your words, and we will start discussing certain things right now. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Are intentionally designed to preserve the privacy of U.S. citizens. They are intentionally designed to ensure the information is collected and used only for legitimate national security and criminal investigative purposes. There are statutory safeguards. There are warrants based on probable cause. There is a FISA court that is involved. There are audits on the back end, and we think so highly of this material. It is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in federal prison to unlawfully disseminate it. All of this was done to make sure this information gathered remains protected as it relates to U.S. citizens. The way I view it, Director Comey, the American people have an agreement with their government. We are going to give you the tools to keep us safe, even if it infringes on our privacy some. We're going to give you the tools. And government in return promises to safeguard the privacy of U.S. citizens. And when that deal is broken, it jeopardizes American trust in these surveillance programs. So let me ask you, do you agree FISA is critical to our national security?
I do.
Do you agree programs like FISA were intentionally designed to safeguard the identity of U.S. persons?
Yes, there are other important elements of it, but that's the primary goal, I believe.
It wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't an accident. These are intentional safeguards that we put in place to protect U.S. citizens. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you agree much of what is learned from these programs is classified or otherwise legally protected?
All FISA applications, review by the court, collection by us pursuant to our FISA authority is classified.
The dissemination of which is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison?
Sure, dissemination, unauthorized dissemination.
Unauthorized dissemination of classified or otherwise legally protected material punishable by a felony up to 10 years in federal prison.
Yep, yes, as it should be.
All right. In January of this year, the Washington Post reported, according to a senior U.S. government official, a named U.S. citizen, and I will not use the name, a named U.S. citizen, phoned the Russian ambassador several times on December the 29th. In February of this year, the Washington Post reported nine current and former officials who were in senior positions at multiple agencies at the time of the call spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss intelligence matters, and that officials began poring over intelligence reports, intercepted communications, and diplomatic cables. In February of this year, the New York Times reported a U.S. citizen, whose name I will not use, discusses sanctions with the Russian ambassador in a phone call, according to officials who have seen a transcript of the wiretapped conversation. And again in February of this year, the New York Times reported on a phone call involving a U.S. citizen, including significant discussions of phone records, intercepted calls, intercepted communications, and reported the NSA captured calls and then asked the FBI to collect as much information as possible. My time is up, so I will say this for this round. I thought it was against the law to disseminate classified information. Is it?
Oh, yes, Sure, it's a serious crime. I'm not going to comment on those particular articles because I don't want to, in any circumstance, compound a criminal act by confirming that it was classified information. But in general, yes, it's a serious crime, and it should be, for the reasons you said.
We'll take it back up next round, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I'll now yield 15 minutes to Mr. Schiff.
Director Comey, I want to begin by attempting to put to rest several claims made by the President about his predecessor, namely that President Obama wiretapped his phones. So that we can be precise, I want to refer you to exactly what the President said and ask you whether there is any truth to it. First, the President claimed, quote, "Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism," unquote. Director Comey, was the President's statement that Obama had his wires tapped in Trump Tower a true statement?
With respect to the President's tweets about alleged wiretapping directed at him by the prior administration, I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI. The Department of Justice has asked me to share with you that the answer is the same for the Department of Justice and all its components. The Department has no information that supports those tweets.
The President accused Mr. Obama and presumably the FBI of engaging in McCarthyism. As you understand the term McCarthyism, do you think President Obama or the FBI was engaged in such conduct?
I'm not going to try and characterize the tweets themselves. All I can tell you is we have no information that supports them.
Were you engaged in McCarthyism, Director Comey?
Try very hard not to engage in any isms of any kind, including McCarthyism.
The President second stated, quote, "Is it legal for a sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election? Turned down by a court earlier, a new low," unquote. Director Comey, can you answer the President's question? Would it be legal for President Obama to have ordered a wiretap of Donald Trump?
I'm not going to characterize or respond to the tweets themselves. I can tell you in general, as Admiral Rogers and I were just saying, there is a statutory framework in the United States under which courts grant permission for electronic surveillance, either in a criminal case or a national security case, based on a showing of probable cause, carefully overseen. It's a rigorous process that involves all three branches of government, and it's one we've lived with since the late 1970s. That's how it works. So no individual in the United States can direct electronic surveillance of anyone. It has to go through an application process, ask a judge. The judge can then make the order.
So President Obama could not unilaterally order a wiretap of anyone?
No president could.
Mr. Trump also asserted in that tweet that that the application or the President's order was turned down by a court. Was there any request made by the FBI or Justice Department to wiretap Donald Trump turned down by a court?
That's one of those subjects I can't comment on one way or another. Please don't interpret that in any way other than I just can't talk about anything that relates to the FISA process in an open setting.
Third, the President stated, "I'd bet a good lawyer could make a great case out of the fact that President Obama was tapping my phones in October just prior to the election." Director Comey, you're a good lawyer. Can you make out a great case that President Obama wiretapped Mr. Trump's phones just prior to the election, in light of the fact you have said there's no evidence of that?
All I can say is what I said before, that we don't have any information that supports those tweets.
Well, in my view, then, you would not be a great but a very unethical lawyer to make out such a case. And finally, the President made the following accusation: "How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate, bad or sick guy." Director Comey, the President has compared Mr. Obama to Nixon and purported wiretap of Trump phones as another Watergate. What was the gravamen of the offense by Nixon and his operatives during Watergate? A lot of people who may be watching may be too young to understand what Watergate was about. What was the gravamen of that offense?
Well, as I recall it, and I was a kid, but have studied it quite a bit in school, the gravamen of it was an abuse of power, including break-ins, unlawful wiretaps, obstruction of justice, sort of the cycle of criminal conduct.
And it was a break-in of the Democratic headquarters by operatives of the president, was it not?
That's my understanding is that's how it began. The
And it
investigation
also
began.
involved a cover-up by the president.
Yes, as I said,